Vahnahbee show. Oh, 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 oh. Come on, let's talk about it.
Good evening and welcome to another edition of the Vahnahbee show. It's a pleasure to have you guys here with us this evening. We just want to thank you so much for your support beforehand and going forward. You know, we look forward to it. So like, share, subscribe, tell your friends, tell one to tell all. Okay, we're in for a really interesting ride this evening. We have a lot to discuss. But we just want to say thank you to our sponsors, the folks at Convenience Plus, the supermarket in Maho, that's on the main street in Maho, brings you everything you need on your grocery list and so much more. You want to do some DIY at home, they've got stuff there for you. And if you're thirsty, you need to keep rehydrated, so drink crystal water. Alright, so Convenience Plus Supermarket on the main street in Maho. Everything you need, you can get it right there. And if you want a glam like mine and look like mine, then down to the Glam or the Glam Day Spa on Independence Street in Roseau. You can give them a call on 448-4099. Visit and get your look or get a massage or any one of the other services that they offer. So we spoke about an interesting discussion, and now we're here to present our guest. We just want to welcome Olivia Odileke. She is a certified online trainer, teacher, professional, let's say. Good evening, Olivia, and welcome. How are you?
It's great to be here, Vanessa. Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure. You know, I always like to have people who can really bring the information coming from a background where they're known and trusted. So that's why you're here. So we're talking online learning. Now, we know, well, here in Dominica, we pretty much started with online learning post Hurricane Maria, but it seems grown and the demand is now there with the advent of the COVID pandemic. So you'll find all of the schools, not just some of the schools right now, getting into online learning. And I can see on the faces of my children in particular, sometimes I look into schools, but I can see on their faces sometimes like they're wanting more. And it's not just with them, you know, I think other kids maybe share the same sentiment, they want more. But we can't blame the teachers because it's a new thing for them. So we just pretty much want to discuss how best they can do it and keep the kids engaged. And you've been in this field.
Oh yeah, I've been in this field for about 7 years. I taught for about 6 years in the regular brick and mortar.
Yeah.
And then I made the switch, and it was a big switch. It was a paradigm shift. And the first 3 months, you do a lot of work because you are in a whole new arena.
Right.
And you realize what you did face to face, you cannot do that online.
Right.
Otherwise, these are some things that happen. First of all, students stop tuning in. They do not come to class. Especially, I think now, because a lot of parents are going to be working, they're going to trust that their child is online doing their thing. And that's wonderful to trust your child.
Yeah.
It's really, you know, we want to have trust in our children, but we don't want to set our children up for failure.
Right.
Because they may be doing something, but still don't really know what they're doing. Just like the teachers.
Yes.
I'm still trying to figure out what they're doing.
And they're trying, but no offense to them, but sometimes it's not really working. So they really need the right tools.
You need the right tools and strategies. One of the first things of engagement, especially when you're engaging students online, is you got to set the expectation for engagement. So you can have a learning goal, and you know what you want them to be able to do, you know how you're going to assess them, but then what is your engagement goal? How are you setting the expectations? How are they supposed to participate? Do you want them to participate, or do you want to talk to them the whole 45 minutes? And I am a part of an organization where every day I look at videos of virtual teachers, about 5 to 8 videos a day, and I look at about 15 minutes of their classroom. These are people who have been trained to teach virtually, and the children are not engaged. The children are not engaged.
So they're trained.
Yeah, they're trained to teach virtual, And our job is to look at what they're doing and develop motivation, inspiration, and training to get them to use these strategies.
Right.
Because sometimes they get a little tap of them, but they don't use them. So set an expectation. So I create expectation videos.
Right.
Kids are into videos. They're into TikTok, Snapchat. They're into YouTube.
Yeah.
Have the teachers been trained on how to create a video, how to create an instructional video? Because they're online, you don't have to teach live for 45 minutes. You can have videos for them to look at. Okay, baby, go explore this video for 5 minutes, do this activity for 5 minutes, and then I'm going to meet with you one-on-one and see how you're doing.
Right.
So the online does not have to be you talking and just having the students do an assessment.
Yeah.
There are so many ways you can put inquiry, you can do research, you can do explorations, but that's part of engagement. I can go on and on about this, but I'm gonna stop right there. You asked me another question.
No, we are going to go on and on. We are going to go on and on because we're really just trying to bring the information out.
Bring the information
as to how to keep the kids engaged.
So that's a good question though. How do we do it? Right. So I said set expectations. I can't just say participate. Right. I have to say, when I call your name, I want you to unmute yourself. I'm going to ask you a question and everyone is going to put their answer in the chat box, but they're not going to press enter. I'm going to say, let's press enter. Find someone's comment, give a reply to someone's comment in the chat box. So you're giving them things to do. And when you do it online, you can only talk for 7 minutes. So if a teacher is online, you talk for 7 minutes, you give the students something to do for 5 to 6 minutes. It has to go back and forth. It's like a ball.
Oh, right.
It's a ball.
Yes.
It's a ball of learning.
Yes.
You go back and forth if you want them to be academically engaged. But if you want them to just sit there and say you did your job,
it's like basketball. You don't keep the ball to yourself.
You don't keep the ball to yourself.
Pass it to your teammate.
They have to be doing the work. And research shows that students retain 90% of the knowledge when they do something with it. And doing something is not always just doing a problem. Right. It could be, I'm going to put you in breakout rooms and I want you to explain this concept to your partner. Or I'm going to put you in breakout rooms and I want you to look at some common errors students make on these kind of problems. Which error might you make and why? Talk to your neighbor. Come back and let's explain it. So when you get them online, you want them to be talking. You want them to be talking with a partner. You want them to be socializing, even though it's virtual.
Because if you were in the classroom, this is some of the what you'd employ, what you would try to do. So you try to get them to group up, and get stuff done, or help them to understand stuff. You'll be right there with them doing those things. So you have to make it like you have to make online like the in-person kind of.
You have to make it like in-person, but you're very deliberate with everything. You have to plan it out. You can't just, back in the day, you go in the classroom and you might have a learning objective, you got a little activity, and maybe you have an assessment, and you could just come up with something that night before.
Right.
Virtual learning? You cannot come in there the night before and just throw it together like everything. It has to almost be like a symphony. It's like it's well planned out. You know who's playing what instruments. Yeah. And it's a mental thing mostly. It's a mental thing. And you have to be conscious. Am I talking? I give myself a little timer. I set a little timer and I put like 8 minutes on the timer. And when it go beep beep, I say, Olivia, it's time for the kids to do something.
Right.
So setting those kind of things will help too.
Okay.
Another thing that teachers can do is they can have inquiry. You can have inquiry online. You could post a picture of something and ask the students, generate questions about this picture. And then have them become the expert. How would you answer this question if you were the expert? Find a question that you would answer as an expert. I love to do stuff like that because it's a great way to get into content. I might show them a picture of a building. What types of jobs are in this building? What type of work is done in this building? Get them thinking about it before you jump into the content. Let them problem solve. Hey, I got this problem. Like when I taught my science classes, there is Mr. Hook. He had this theory that little germs, they didn't just come by themselves. He believed that they came from other organisms, right? So I had a 5th grade class, and instead of telling them the experiment, I said, you recreate it. I said, here are the things you have. You got some meat, you got some flies, you got a jar, you got a cover. Draw a picture of how you would set that experiment up to see, were you thinking the same way as him? Because his hypothesis was things come from living things. They don't come from non-living things. So I had about 4 or 5 groups. And then that builds their confidence because they get to do problem solving before you teach them something. So engagement is get the students doing something first, thinking collaboratively first, then teach them something. Let them go inside of them first and find some answers.
And I like the fact that you mentioned, get them into doing stuff because it builds self-esteem. And the mere fact that you're online means that some students may think that they can shy away from actually, participating in the class because, hey, I'm online, I'm at home.
Yes.
And maybe my camera is off. So I don't really have to participate, I don't really have to, even pay attention. But I can just sit there.
Yeah, and I can go have another window open. I can be playing a game.
Exactly.
I can be in Fortnite. I could be in Minecraft.
Yeah. But if they're engaged and if they're being asked questions and they have to form a group and you're working as a group, you're working together, you have to make some input. So that is a great way of engaging them.
And then also thinking about kids talking. Everyone talks, everyone writes. Expectation. Remember, engagement starts with expectation. So when I have my students come, everybody writes. At some point, you're going to write in this class, no matter what subject it is.
Right.
You're going to get some feedback. That's another thing, peer feedback. It works beautifully virtually. So peer feedback is beautiful virtually. You know why? Because you can create something through an app or something with technology that kids can manipulate and they can share it and get feedback on it. So for example, I just did a workshop with some teachers and they created an expectation video. I had about 40 teachers there. So I can provide them all feedback.
40 teachers.
40 teachers. So it's just like having a class of 30 people. How can you provide feedback to 30 people all at the same time? No, let the students do the work. Pass the ball to the students.
Delegate.
So what I did is I put 3 in each room. I had a spreadsheet in Google Forms so everyone could see everyone's link to every video. And they just saw their partner's name. They watched the video in the breakout room. And then I use a product called Nearpod, and I just posted it up and I said, whatever feedback you get from other teachers, write it on the board. And say, Vanessa said I should improve this. Or Jason suggested I do this, or he liked this. So just 3 things, something you like, something you have a question about, or something you would improve.
Okay.
And so they spent about 20 minutes working while I was sipping some tea. Okay?
Nice.
They were working, they were doing the work. My job was to facilitate the thinking.
Yeah.
It's not to do the thinking, it's to facilitate the thinking. And that's what teaching is supposed to be about. It's supposed to be about facilitating their brain hurting. If students are coming to your class and their brain is not hurting a tad, they're not learning. They are not learning. And so how can we bring a rigor and push them just a little bit so that they grow, that there's an expansion there. So afterwards, the teachers came back and I said, how did that feel? They said, we loved it.
Awesome.
And then they got the feedback. I said, you got 30 minutes, go back and revise your videos based on the feedback of the teachers.
Awesome.
And I said, this is what the students are longing for. This is what they want.
The feedback.
They want the feedback.
The feedback and the interaction.
Yes. But you gotta set the expectation. And then you give them models, because I gave them some models. All of those things help. But we just tapping on it, girl. It's so many things I do. And when I do trainings, people always say, Olivia, how do you keep them engaged? I said, because I keep them thinking.
Exactly.
I keep pushing them. You must keep pushing them just a little bit. And if somebody's being pushed, they don't have time to act up. They don't have time to have bad behavior. They don't have time to do all that stuff because they are actively thinking, I wonder what she's gonna do next, or I wonder what we're gonna do next with our partners.
That is where the engagement comes in.
And it can be so exciting.
So let me ask you something,
Yes.
Olivia. You are now an online trainer, teacher. Were you ever in the classroom setting?
Oh yeah, I was in the classroom setting and I taught virtually.
Okay.
I taught virtually for 4 years before COVID. So COVID teaching is not really virtual teaching.
Right.
It's called emergency teaching.
Yes.
That's what we doing now, emergency teachings, because you just
You
trying
have
to figure out what
that.
you're doing, right? Versus coming into an environment where all my curriculum is already online. Because real virtual teaching is the curriculum is online already.
Yes.
The students take their time to go through the curriculum at their own pace.
Yeah.
And then they come to me and I synergize it. We analyze it, we explain it, we go deeper into it.
Gotcha.
So that's what we do in virtual
Gotcha.
learning. But now that we're in this kind of between part,
Mhm.
the teachers kind of have to create that curriculum through Google Classroom that students can go through some stuff at their own pace. But then when they come to you in a live class, is where you're supposed to really facilitate discussions, you're supposed to facilitate research, exploration. We're kind of going deeper into it. And that can be a beautiful thing, because you get a balance where it's almost like a flipped classroom where you learn it on your own,
Mhm.
and then when you come with people, we go deeper into it, we collaborate with it. Because most kids can read once they get past 3rd grade, they can read. So why are you in there reading to them? Why you got a whole paragraph on the board with 12 sentences? And if you were in a training and somebody put 12 sentences on the board, what would you be doing as a teacher? Sleeping.
Yeah.
You'd be on your phone, you'd be doing all that, but see, we don't think about
Yeah.
our kids. And we put all this information on the board and think, oh yeah, they gonna get it. No, they're not getting it. You gotta put yourself in their shoes, Put yourself in their shoes. How would you like to be engaged?
So what do you prefer more? The online teaching or
I like
the
a combination.
in-classroom?
Personally, I would love to be a combination school where they could do 3 days at home and 2 days in the classroom. I think you would have more productivity. Also, if classroom space became an issue, you wouldn't have it as an issue because you could alternate, where you would have half the kids at home on these days, the other half come to class on these days. Because I think, especially our boys, especially when I'm talking about our black boys, they can't sit down all day long for 6 hours every day and be fed that way. And then you say they slow. They're not slow. They just yes, they need to be maybe at their house doing a little bit, and then they go run out, play some ball, go do some soccer, and come back and do a little work. And they can probably do it 2 or 3 days and be good.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, I'm good, but. It's like everyone is trying to force people into
this way of life.
Yeah, like everyone has to go this way versus, baby, I just want you to master the fundamentals. I need you to be able to read. I need you to write. And I need you to do some math. And so come to school, get those basic skills, but then the rest of school should be creativity.
Yeah.
It should be allowing them to express themselves and create artifacts. If you're creating,
you're learning.
Not only are you learning, but you're not bored.
You're not bored because you're actually doing something.
You ain't gonna say to Mom, I'm bored. Oh no. But if you actively creating something or working on a project or something, that just kind of doesn't come to your mind. It doesn't come to your mind
because you're on this and you want to get there. You want to get to the end of it. So you're at it.
Yes. And I have a project-based learning background too. I believe projects are very important because it's real world. I mean, how many adults are listening to the program now that have worked on a project? What skills did you learn from that project? I mean, how did that make you grow? And we forget that kids, they got skills too, even in 1st grade. They can problem solve, they can do certain things, but I think we take their potential for granted sometimes. I think we take their potential for granted.
And I think too, it comes from maybe background, like how you were raised or what your parents did and then the parents now, because I grew up that way, then my child has to grow up that way. So it's like they suddenly develop this box that was never there. There's no box. There's just you living how you're supposed to live to be the best you.
Yes.
But if you create a box for the kids now, then they're not going to want to integrate, or they're not going to perform to the best of their abilities at school or academically, because they're restricted. And like you said, they're not being allowed to be creative.
Because they all into the technology, but teachers, we might not know how to use the technology, but there's YouTube, baby. There's YouTube. And see what you do, you go to YouTube and you get the videos on how to create something and you just put it in Google Classroom and the kids learned it on their own. You don't even have to learn it. They can learn it on their own. They just need you to invite it inside. So for example, instead of just taking a term paper on, cells and their bodies, what if the student could create a video and infuse live people? Maybe they do props, maybe they bring in animation, and they create a video that you could actually use to teach kids on how the cell functions. But now it's just, here's a cell, draw the word, put the little term. I'm like, that's not real life. It's just not giving them skills that they can use. So when I think about this virtual platform, I think about a window is open to allow students to create and to use different technologies we've never been exposed to before. 20, 30 years ago, we didn't have this. We didn't have computers in the school. Even in America, most of the computers, they sitting there isolated. They getting dust. They just go there, they go to one website, or they go to Cool Math, or they go to one assessment site, but they do not use computers and the apps to let students create.
All right.
Because, we scared. Well, I gotta get them ready for that test. I said, baby, when students create based on the knowledge, they're gonna go way beyond the test because they're thinking. And when students are thinking, that standard is like down here. Like I used to teach science. And my kids would make 4 and 5s on the standardized test. I never told them this was on the test. Those words never came out of my mouth. I was teaching my students how to think. And when you teach students how to think, they will excel any test you put in. So tests are designed for thinkers.
Exactly.
That's what it's designed. It's not designed to retain. No one has to retain anything. Just pull your phone, Google it. Yes. You don't have to retain information today. Today it's about taking the information and creating something.
Applying it and creating.
Yes, making something new out of it. Right. So that's where we gotta go.
Yeah.
And that's why I want to take teachers. I want to transform education by using simple ed tech tools. And one of the tools I love to use is Nearpod. I wrote a book called Beginner's Guide to Nearpod. Okay. A tool for transforming virtual teaching. And in the book, I lay out like a lesson plan. Like, remember I talked about inquiry?
Yes.
I give them examples of what I mean by inquiry. Right. I set it up. I give them websites to use. I even show them how to differentiate. How to do many lessons within a lesson and give students choice. Because when students have choice, they have voice.
Yes.
Every lesson should have at least 10 minutes minimum where a student can click on something and do something that interests them.
All right.
When you do that, engagement goes up too.
Right, so we're talking all of this, Olivia, about you and the training and how teachers can make their students more engaged and how they can make their classrooms more interactive. And you've been there and you've done it. Now you're in Dominica.
Yes.
Are you doing these courses, or are you providing these courses locally? I mean, online is global, but you're here.
Yeah, I'm here. I am so looking forward to doing some live trainings, but in the meantime, because we know COVID is the schools are all closed down now. And I say, I need to do something, not only for Dominica, but any of the Eastern Caribbean countries are invited October 16th from 3 to 5. It's a Saturday because I know people working.
Yeah.
From 3 to 5, I am hosting a 2-hour workshop on engagement strategies for online teaching. There's 2 things I can guarantee. First guarantee, you will be engaged the whole 2 hours. First guarantee. Second guarantee, you will leave with at least 3 things minimum. I'm going to give you more than 3, but you're going to leave with at least 3 things you can use immediately in your virtual classroom to increase not only student engagement, but academic engagement. And the link will be provided for your subscribers so they can take a look. They can see a little glance of the objectives. But really, at the end of the day, I want to make educators fearless. That's my tagline, fearless educator. I want you to be fearless, even though we're going into this unknown territory. We don't have to feel scared because we got access to knowledge. You know, we got access to myself right now, and I just feel like I'm in the right place at the right time to help a lot of people. So the second guarantee is that they will leave at least three things that they can use immediately in their classroom.
Awesome. So they leave with 3 things, and they're going to be able to take that to their classrooms and just let's just say pop, because then they can get their students to interact, then they can engage the students, and they can get them to be creative.
Well, they need to go to the 6-hour workshop for all 3 of those, but we're going to get them started, okay? The goal is to get started. The goal is to just get a couple tips and practice it a little bit and just build your confidence, because everything is a gradual thing, you know. Even with technology, don't feel overwhelmed. My thing is 15 minutes of tummy time. I call it tummy time, you know, like the little babies, how they turn over and they're on their tummy and they crying and their stomach is hurting. They in pain a little bit, but it's gonna make them grow. So that's what I say with teachers is spend about 15 minutes a day with the technology, have your little tummy time, and then before you know it, a couple weeks, a month later, you're very strong.
Awesome. So just tell us again how we can find that training.
They can click on the link that you will provide, and they can also go to oliviaodileke.com. There's going to be a register link right there. Again, that's Olivia, ODILEKE.com.
Awesome.
Yes.
We're going to make sure they find it.
Yes, definitely. And if they can't make it, I have a free resource for them too.
Awesome.
So if you go to my website, I did a survey of 1,500 teachers, not just virtual, brick and mortar teachers, and I asked them one question: what is the one thing you wish you knew how to do, that if you knew how to do it, it would make teaching easier for you? And over 55% of the teachers said creating, interacting, and engaging lessons would make teaching easier for them. So there is an infographic there with the other 4 things, and I have resources. I have little resources within the infographic that they can use. They just go there, put your name, your email address, and it will be emailed to you.
Awesome.
Yes.
So you see, on the Vahnahbee Show, you can get information that helps you to grow, and the teachers especially, you can get information that helps you to be more creative and get your students to be more interactive and more engaged in your classroom. So here we go.
It's a win-win for everybody.
It is.
Yes,
It is.
it's going to be a win-win for everyone.
Right. So Olivia, I just want to thank you so much for dropping by and having this conversation with us.
Well, thank you for thinking of me. I appreciate it. You're good people. You're good people. We need more people like you to help, uplift. Because really what you're trying to do is uplift people.
Yes.
You're trying to get people to think out of the box, and then not only stimulate the brain, but do something with the information. Do something with it.
You know what? Point of correction here. There's no box. There's no box.
Okay.
There's never been a box.
You never been in a box.
No.
You always been out of the box. You always been in the air.
I've been in my mother's womb.
Yes.
You know, and then when I came out, I was just out and leaving. There's never been a box. There's never been a box.
I love it.
Because I mean, once we get that, you know, even when you say think outside the box, people tend to think like, oh, so there was a box.
Okay.
Never been a box.
All right.
So bold and fearless, teacher.
Yes.
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 Anyways, thank you again so much for coming through, Olivia. And you know, I hope that a lot of our teachers here around the Caribbean, around the region, would get on and you know just garner some knowledge from what it is that you're trying to share, and make teaching
Easier.
Yes,
And fun again.
Yes.
That's my tagline. Let's make teaching fun, and let's make it a little easier. You don't have to stress yourself out so much. You know?
Precisely.
Yes.
Precisely. Well, folks, time flies when you're having fun. That's it for us here on this episode of the Vahnahbee Show. We say thank you again to our sponsors, Convenience Plus Inc., Convenience Plus Supermarket on Main Street in Maho. Don't forget to drink crystal water. And to the folks at the Glam, want to look like this, or maybe even, just a full transformation, get your nails done, get your do did, you can go at the Glam Day Spa on Independence Street in Roseville. Thank you. Bye.